Hi, and welcome back to This Week in Voice, Season 9, Episode 7. So we're halfway through roughly Season 9, have had a lot of great discussions and a lot more to come. Thank you for being part of the show. My name is Bradley Metrock. I'm CEO of Project Voice, General Partner of Project Voice Capital Partners. I do want to take a moment to call out Tobias Dingle's new book, The Sound of the Future. I did a review of that about a week ago. The news just came out. It's number 14 on the bestseller list on USA Today among all books. So that's kind of incredible. And we're happy for Willow Tree. We're happy for all of them. I will post that link to the video review in the notes of this podcast so anybody can see it who wants to see that. We've got a great panel today to talk about some really interesting stories. And Liz, I'm going to start with you. Take a moment, tell us who you are, tell us who you're with, tell us what you do.
Great. Well, thank you very much for having us here, the Autotech Council. I am Liz Kerton. I'm the Executive Director of the Autotech Council. It's a community of automotive companies at the cutting edge of innovation, constantly looking for new technologies and startups. The group is about 50 companies. The companies are a select group who are committed to innovation and working with startups for that innovation. So for example, some of the members on the car side are Honda, Toyota, Hyundai, and on the vendor side, we've got a wide variety of members from AAA and Goodyear to Bosch and Denso. But the thing that we all have in common is that we're pushing the envelope of innovation together. Kind of think of it as a Shark Tank for mobility companies, except for I have 50 sharks in the room. And when you get a deal, it's usually getting your technology into the ecosystem. So it's really fun. It kind of keeps me on the cutting edge. I see 200 startups per year, sometimes more. And I also get to see what the car companies and that mobility industry are shooting for, what their vision is for that 5 years out, because that's how that industry works. Right now, they're planning their 2028, 2029 models, because this is where you're starting to source your technology. So it's very different and it's moving really fast, and AI is absolutely part of the equation now.
I love that. Thank you for being part of the show and for all that you do. Conversational AI was early into the car relative to other industry verticals. And now it feels like there's another shoe to drop with what's happened with generative. I'm sure we'll explore some of that in the show. Thank you very much for being here. Next up, we have Matt Light. Matt, say hello. Tell us who you are, tell us who you're with, and tell us what you do.
Hello, my name is Matt Light, and I call my advisory service Lightscope PPM Advisory. I specialize in project portfolio management, and for some 20 plus years, I was the lead analyst with Gartner covering PPM. I also covered a bunch of other topics, including requirements and business analysis and application development process and that sort of thing, but mainly was known as Mr. PPM around Gartner and authored that Magic Quadrant for many years. More recently, I've come off on my own, working with one of my favorite PPM vendors back in those days, Planisware. They are still my primary client, but as I say, I have my independent Lightscope advisory services. So what do? I do a lot of reading. I write articles. I talk to clients. I advise Planisware's executive team on strategic direction, as well as PPM features, functions, and that team, including the product development team. So lots of very interesting developments related to large language models and artificial intelligence and machine learning generally. Lots of opportunities for PPM software providers to leverage AI as they continue to develop their solutions.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you for being part of the show with us. We've talked about Gartner here or there on this show over 9 seasons, and it's been interesting to see how they just that organization itself has adopted and adapted to conversational AI. Very interesting. Thank you very much for being here. We're super interesting to hear all that you do. And Elanu, I'm coming to you. Tell us who you are. Tell us tell us all that you do, and share with us some about all you've got going on.
Hi, my name is Elanu Karakus, and 17-year-old tech enthusiast. I've been a coder for a while now, and I really enjoy building projects within the landscape. I'm currently a part of the Knowledge Society, a human accelerator for teenagers where we learn about emerging techs that are changing the world with mentorships, projects, etc. And as you might guess, artificial intelligence is a common interest within the community. And this year, some of us also had the opportunity to focus on conversational AI and voice assistance thanks to a collaboration with Amazon Alexa. We have focused on how to make Alexa an essential part of Gen Z's life and how to make the next big thing for Gen Z users and voice assistants. This is actually when I reached out to Bradley to meet and pick his brain, and today I'm both honored and happy to be here and share my perspective.
It's great having you here, and it's been fun seeing all the stuff that you've been doing. And you are I had to look this up. You are the third youngest person to be on the show, but you're the first to do a lot of what you have, specifically what you're doing. I'm thrilled to have you on the show. Elanu, thank you for joining us. With that, we'll get to the news. And I'm going to read this first story headline. This is from Ars Technica, who we cite on the show all the time. After ChatGPT disruption, Stack Overflow lays off 28% of staff. The subhead is the popular developer forum is still hunting for a path to profitability. So I'm going to go in the same order that I did the introductions in. So Liz, I'm coming to you. Interesting story. My question for you is, what, if anything, in particular stood out from this particular news item? But more broadly, I'd love to hear your thoughts on just kind of the status of AI versus labor. Is this something that we're going to be seeing a lot more of? Is it kind of hitting a high water mark? Should we be mad? Should we be happy about this? Share with us your thoughts.
Sure. Well, I'm in Silicon Valley, so and I have 25 years here, so we've seen a lot of failure. And in fact, we like failure. We like fail fast, and iterate. So when something's not working, kill it, take the pieces that were working and rebuild and go back to market with something new. And so I don't feel bad for Stack Overflow. I think that what they have is a market reality, which is different now than it was then. They have a lot of good pieces. So I do believe that they can build something from the ashes. I'm not saying, that it's a dead company, but the point is that you have new information, you have new tools, you have new technologies, and businesses will change. That's just the bottom line. And it's a good thing. It makes our businesses more efficient. It makes them better. It makes the more responsive to the market. I I don't think, it is a challenge for labor that they have to get new skills if they're going to stay in that space. But it's really, I think, in what we're seeing with the Stack Overflow is it's company level, company wide, and in fact, we will see industry wide change here. The one thing that stuck out for me in the article was there was a little subtext that said, what happens when we kill our sources, right? A lot of Gen AI and Open AI, the Chat GPT and the spinoffs used Stack Overflow information to learn, to be so amazing and to be able to write code. And if you kill your sources, now what do you have? Like, can an AI go do clinical trials on drugs? Can an AI can an AI report on the news that's going on in the Middle East? And no. So we can't kill our sources. There needs to be a symbiotic relationship with human information and human labor and the analysis and the improvement and the iteration of it. But yeah, I think that was a little subtext in there that really stood out to me. Like, oh yeah, this could be an issue 5 or 10 years from now when, the news sources go away, for example.
Do you think for you specifically, there's a thought that I've seen play out a few times, most recently with the Hollywood strikes, where essentially the thought process is, or the philosophical undertone is, that unions can save us from AI.
Mm.
And with what you're seeing with like the screenwriters and all that, it's like how we deal with AI is just a pure function of our own negotiation, and we need to be consequently more hardline. Obviously, unions are a big part of your industry. Do you feel like unions being part of your industry, the auto mobility industry, to the extent that they are, is helpful for what's going on in this movement toward AI? Is it hurtful? Is it neutral? Doesn't matter? Share with me your thoughts on unions.
Well, it's a little bit political,
Sure,
not
that's a
usually
lot. Yeah,
someplace that I
for
go.
sure.
But if you look at just the margins on the business between Tesla, which is a modern car company that uses almost all robotics and AI for their design and their planning and their manufacturing. If you look at and we have one here in the Silicon Valley, a manufacturing line for Tesla, they actually let you walk the floor because there's no people in it. It's just a row of orange robots. So they have fantastic margins. Their profitability as a car company surpasses all of the traditional car companies that have been doing the business their way for 100 years, and that includes unions. Yes, Tesla doesn't do unions, doesn't like unions. So there's going to be some labor costs in there as well in terms of wage. But to be honest, the mechanical engineers and the software engineers are also part of this giant shift of finding new ways to add value in production and in manufacturing and in the economy. So yeah, car companies are going to have to figure that out, both on the car side, the product, like what's going on inside the car, but also in their supply chain and their labor markets.
No, that's great, and thank you for fielding that hot potato with zero notice. I appreciate that. Matt, I'm coming to you. Same question. Interesting story here. It's just another shot, between AI and labor. You're in a deeply advisory role and have been for some time. I'd love to hear your thoughts, if anything stood out in particular in the article, but also just sort of AI versus labor, and where you think all of that's headed.
Sure. A couple of thoughts that occurred and prompted partly by Liz's excellent observations. Thinking back to all those years at Gartner, talked with a lot of corporate IT organizations, including a lot of developers, and things changed over time. There was a lot more really new application development of substantial applications for the business, in the 90s and before. During the 90s, there became the trend toward buy versus build. And after 2000, and these are very rough markers, there was less of that really creative new application development within corporate IT. A lot of the creativity continued to flourish out in Silicon Valley, and lots of developers developing very interesting consumer apps that leverage handheld devices and all that sort of thing, but less in corporate IT. Now we see with AI being able to generate code, I would not want to be a developer working in a corporate IT organization where these days they talk about we do product management. We don't do new projects. We kind of do iterative enhancements of existing applications. And yeah, some of the ideas are new, others are just necessary, but there's not a ton of creativity that goes into it. And I believe that the Chat GPTs, the bards of the world, Microsoft is going to be all over this like a bad suit. They are going to take on a lot of that maintenance and enhancement and iterative improvement of existing applications in big corporations. I think this will be a hit on the offshore development world as well. All that outsourcing, some of it's already come back on shore. But, I'm an optimist. I think that we'll see a lot of creativity coming from developers outside of corporate IT. And it makes me think a little bit of, I'm working on an article right now. I came across in Forbes Tech, an article citing some research that Garry Kasparov, the great chess grandmaster, had cited in the Harvard Business Review and in his review of a book. And that was that, there was a lot of publicity given to when Kasparov played a supercomputer at chess one year, I think it was 96, and won, and then he lost the next year. But then 10 years later, there were some further experiments, and they found that a creative grandmaster with a computer, even just a plain laptop, is better than a supercomputer. Because the computer can do all those deep calculations, 15 moves in advance where you've got astronomical numbers of combinations. That takes time, and the grandmaster can follow the right lines creatively, look at a sacrifice or whatever, and tell the computer what to explore, and they win consistently. The pairing of a creative master with, and it doesn't have to be a grandmaster, there were some just master level players that with a computer could beat the best supercomputer. So I think that developers leveraging the ability of these models to code will result in some pretty awesome new applications.
I love that. Yeah, and I knew about the first, the first time he played Big Blue or whatever that was, but I didn't know anything about the latter part of what you shared. That's super interesting. Elanu, I'm coming to you on this. You have yet to have your expectations destroyed by corporate America, which everyone goes through. But it's coming. Interesting article here from about Stack Overflow, well-known organization. I would love to hear your thoughts on if anything in particular stood out from the piece, of course, but also how you and your peers think about AI getting a job out of school, what you're going to do for your career. Share with us your thoughts and point of view.
Well, I think this is just about value proposition on the developer side and on user side. When you think about it, AI can undoubtedly provide specific and instantaneous assistance when you have a problem with your code, right? So it's not a surprise that developers prefer ChatGPT over Stack Overflow right now, because when you use Stack Overflow, it will take time and you have to check a blog post from maybe 5 years ago to find answers for your questions. But the article that we are going over right now actually raised a good question. What happens when platforms like Stack Overflow stops crowdsourcing knowledge so that chatbots like ChatGPT can function, right? I think that the knowledge ecosystem in our world should be a two-way street. So if an AI is getting benefit from platforms like Stack Overflow, it's only fair that this platform receives recognition. And if applicable compensation. And it's encouraging to see that OpenAI is working on web crawler controls and exploring ways for platforms to opt out of crawling. I don't think this will solve Stack Overflow's problem in the long term, because for developers, it was still about which one helps me the best. And it's going to be ChatGPT if we're going in this direction. Because this will not solve Stack Overflow's problem, because when developers choose chatbots, this will negate knowledge creation on Stack Overflow platforms itself. And when there's no new knowledge generation, then there is no new value to be crawled. So there's no compensation as well. I think we need to find a better way to make coexistence sustainable for traditional platforms, so the knowledge generators and chatbots, which makes knowledge useful. As a perspective of what I think about my career in the future, what's happened with AI in labor, instead of being scared or afraid of not being able to find a job, I prefer to look at more in a practical way of seeing how I can be part of this transformation and how I can leverage this transformation for my career, and just be optimistic about what AI can bring to our humanity progress.
I love that. Yeah, that was great. And I agree with you, right? We don't really feel like we have much grasp on an equilibrium kind of balance between knowledge creation, as you put it, and artificial intelligence systems that will leverage that in one way or another. I think you phrased that really well. And it also dovetails into the second story, which I'm going to read the headline for out loud, and we'll get into that. And I'll go in the reverse order. So Elanu, I'm going to stay right here with you. This is from New Scientist. Scientists prefer feedback from ChatGPT to judgment by peers. The subheadline is scientific research must be reviewed by other scientists before it is published, but some researchers say they find feedback from ChatGPT more useful. So this this is an interesting one, and once again, I want to just sort of get your thoughts as to what, if anything, in particular jumped out from the piece, but also more broadly, you spoke to that balance of knowledge generation relative to AI, and this piece from New Scientist speaks to it too, basically saying that, well, it's probably a little out of whack. Share with me your thoughts on, frankly, if you think academia is able to provide the knowledge that will continue to feed AI, or if we're going to need to do something else, because this piece kind of makes it sound like we're a little soft in how we approach peer review and things like that, things we know that are true, but it just sort of speaks to it without really directing that laser on it. You're on the cusp of all of this. This will be the next few years for you with this sort of thing. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, when it comes to academia, I think we all know that we're slow at making knowledge public and available for other people. And this is essential if we're talking about the rapid investment of ChatGPT like tools that would enable peer review without the need for humans, right? Because when we think about peer review, it essentially is to look at a paper or research and see if it's feasible, if it's validated, and if it's well researched. And if we want an AI to do that, it needs to know the in-depth expertise to understand the concepts taught in the research paper. Right now, our tools have access to vast information and knowledge, but academia is not a place where you see a lot of information being public and shared and talked about, which I think is really important to make information shared so that we ask the right questions to make progress as a humanity to solve big problems. In the future, if you're looking for ways to incorporate AI into our peer review systems, then we have to also understand how we will able to make information accessible to it, because it first needs to know things so that it can judge the same things that we want it to understand.
Yeah, so that's a great point, and that's a separate point from the one that you made earlier. You're at first you were talking about knowledge, just having enough knowledge to feed in, and now you're talking about sort of the algorithms and rules of the road in terms of what gets fed in. I liked great comments. Matt, I'm coming to you. Same question. Interesting sort of piece here. Certainly from your role, the idea, this idea of what exactly is the relationship between ChatGPT/AI tools in their current incantation and evaluation of work, evaluation of somebody's performance, evaluation of any of that is kind of interesting. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Sure. Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting story that you forwarded on. I looked at some other articles as well. I love Elanu's point there about making sure that there are some rules of the road, that new knowledge is made accessible to the artificial intelligence, the models out there. And as long as we're talking governance and rules of the road, I come back to the article, and I think that anything that's published with only AI peer review is dubious. I think, and again, I'll come back to the Grandmaster plus, AI model. Get at least one human peer reviewer. And I think one thing that's going to be interesting is that the human peer reviewers, and these are PhDs, these are masters, they're going to use ChatGPT, Bard, whatever's available to them, and that will lift the level of their peer review. It will make it easier to quickly review some of the fundamentals. And again, they can be more creative, more insightful in their reviews and apply critical thinking that I think sometimes the AI is less capable of. I mean, what if your AI starts to hallucinate when it's confronted with a particularly weird experiment or whatever? You might get some pretty faulty peer reviews out of it. So, perhaps I'm cynical. Well, not perhaps. I have developed a healthy cynicism over the years, and the article I was reading mentioned that surveys show that the researchers find the AI peer reviews to be as helpful, sometimes more helpful than a regular peer review. Well, you kind of follow the money. These guys have to publish or perish. The tenure is at stake. They've got to get some peer reviews. So if you ask them, was it good peer review? What are they going to say? No, it really wasn't that good. And, a better peer reviewer would have caught all the mistakes in my research. They're not going to say that. So I think it is suspect, but I think that it can be a great tool in the hands of a masterful human peer reviewer to keep that process honest. So, if I were king, I would require that the governance of publishing peer-reviewed research include at least one human reviewer.
I like that. Yeah, no, I think that's great commentary as well. And Liz, I'm coming to you. You've heard two great sets of commentary from Elanu and from Matt on this. Interesting piece, interesting story, interesting thought process. Would love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, without going over again what they said, I would highlight two other things that I think are important as we think through what this means. And one is bias, and one is labor shortage. So in the bias situation, AI has a bias. We can argue if it's fixable or where it comes from, but it comes from the what it's learned, it has a bias built in. So you can't do it, but you can't use AI by itself. But the humans who are doing peer review also have their own biases. So totally agreeing with Matt and Elanu that a combination makes more sense. We need to make sure that, especially in the scientific, where we're building information on information, that the source information is as clean as it can be. And then the second thing that was in the article is peer reviews right now are just taking so long. And like Elanu was saying, the information is taking a really long time to get out into the public because we haven't validated it and we haven't put our stamp of approval on it because it hasn't had the peer review, because we don't have enough people to do it. So AI can help. And this is where AI is a tool to help the humans do the human job. I have an 18-year-old right now who's in her first year of university, struggling with reading everything that she needs to read for her classes. And I said, well, why aren't you using AI? And she said, oh, I can't. That's not fair. I said, no, this is a tool that you have to do your job. Everyone needs to be using the tools that they have. So she tried it, she loved it, and she paid her $15 a month instantly to help that. But yeah, I do think that we do need to think about biases both on the human side and on the artificial intelligence side. And then if we have labor shortages, yeah, let's use the tools that we have, and AI is absolutely in that bucket.
It's interesting, and we've talked about this on the show multiple times this season and last season to some degree. Kids who are in school now, K through 12, and then young folks like Elanu who are either at the top of high school or about to be in college, like your daughter. I mean, this is unprecedented times. It's just wild, and there will be books written about it. We've talked on this show about, as you said, Liz, taking advantage of tools and deploying them in furtherance of your own learning and edification. But we've also talked about the fact that from an administrative point of view, a lot of these educators are completely flailing around in the dark in terms of how to manage the classroom. And there's been a lot of false accusations, a lot of lives screwed up because they've been accused of AI being involved with, being accused of plagiarism or cheating via AI, and that was never the case. So it is truly the Wild West. And what you said, spoke to that, and you had a lot of great comments. I think it's interesting with this, before we go to the third and final story. In fact, it dovetails well with it, to ruminate on the fact that this story basically talks about research. The layman would read this headline and say, well, these academics who, I don't know if the people like on the manufacturing line value the work that academics do in the first place, but certainly they don't value seeing a headline that they would rather be reviewed by AI than other humans. There's something funny about that, but it speaks to the fact that we really are very immature in understanding, in terms of human AI interaction, Matt, really to your point and thought process, with as us as human beings, when there will be certain scenarios where speaking to AI and interacting with AI will be optimal, and then there will be certain situations where speaking with and interacting with other human beings will be optimal. And I'll give you a perfect example, because we'll be talking about Alexa in just a moment. We learned very quickly when smart speakers started to come out over the last 6 to 7 years. I mean, this was one of the first research headlines that came out, was that there's a number of situations medically where human beings give more accurate and actionable information to AI, in that case voice assistants, but just AI representing just technology more broadly, than they do other human beings. And the worst cohort of this is older men. Older men, time and again and again and again, didn't answer questions accurately, like for insurance, surveys you have to do to get insurance, or just basic stuff in the clinic or whatever. They just flat out lied all the time, about do you smoke, do you drink, all sorts of activity. But when they spoke to Alexa, which was the example that was used in the one particular paper, the accuracy went up to almost 100%. Like, it wasn't 100%, but it was close. So just interesting times that we're in as far as that's concerned as well. And so this will dovetail with a third piece and give you all a chance to sound off on that, and all of this. I'm going to read this. This is from Android Police. Amazon's inability to monetize Alexa is the biggest problem no one's talking about. And the headline is the subheadline is Alexa may lose 10 billion this year, revealing major monetization problems for smart assistants. So I'm going to go in the original order. So Liz, I'm going to start with you, Matt, and then Elanu, come to you for the last word. So we've talked about the 10 billion figure on this show before. That's a dubious sort of statistic, but basically what this person is saying is that Alexa is being completely mismanaged, which is something that's been argued on the show many, many times. I'd love to hear your thoughts, Liz, on the Alexa ecosystem. It can almost be word association. When I say Alexa, like, what comes into your mind? Like, is it just a toy, or is it something that like has usefulness? And then anything else that you would like to comment on as well.
Sure. I actually can't say the word because I have one about 10 feet behind me, so I will say she. But no, I don't think that product line is being mismanaged. I think it's a loss leader. And in kind of traditional business sense, Amazon has put this product out into the world. They've basically subsidized IoT across most households in the United States. One of the things that they snuck in that nobody really realized was this low power wireless network, which talks to each other. So my device talks to the front door, talks to the neighbor's front door, talks to their living room, talks to the guys down the street. And they have built a wireless network that covers the United States. 90% of the people who live in the United States are covered by this network, which to Amazon is free. And they sell things on it. So the huge win for them. And then they offer it to the developers and say, hey, do you want a free wireless network that covers 90% of the population of the United States? It's free. You can just ride on it. All you need to do is use our AWS cloud, and which they charge for. So they are making money, and they do know that they need the best hardware out there in order to have people continue to use it. So I don't think it's a failing business. I think they're very happy with what they've accomplished, and they keep doing more and more. The network, by the way, if you want to do a little research on it, is called the Sidewalk Network, and they just published their coverage map for the first time in the spring, and it went from basically 0 to ta-da, we have a nationwide network. It's low bandwidth, it's low data, and they're using the individual's home networks, like your cable TV type of thing, and they cap how much data they can use each month. And so it doesn't interfere with your home Netflix stream. People are happy to keep it on. But that's one of the side benefits. And there are several other side benefits. Yeah, if you think of it kind of at a basic level, they're not selling as much dishwasher soap as they thought they might through those devices. But that's not the play. At this point, I don't think that's the play. Going kind of separately into my industry, which is automotive, and I think you've seen this as well, the Alexa in the car is also a sleeper. So at some point when the car becomes much more automated, if it's not driving itself, the driver is that kind of co-pilot where the car is making most of the decisions, similar to Matt's grandmaster idea, is the human is the creative grandmaster in the car, and the car is doing the majority of the heavy lifting and the decisions. You need an interface now to work with your vehicle and all of the other vehicles, because your vehicle is now a connected piece of a network of vehicles and street lights and bicycles. And no one has even thought about what that that little sliver of interaction between the human and the transportation experience could be. And she really wants to be in there. So she may be in there.
So our friends at Amazon PR who watch this show every week, who I refer to as the Eye of Sauron, will really appreciate your comments there. Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's hard to argue that it's a bad business outside of just some very surface level numbers, and you hit all of that out of the park. Matt, I want to come to you. From your point of view and everything that you work on and your line of sight, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Anything in particular stand out from the piece, of course, but more broadly, the Alexa ecosystem. What does it mean to you? What do you see when you look at that?
Well, first, Bradley, as a Lord of the Rings fan, I've got to say it's a little harsh, the Eye of Sauron.
Is it? What? That's separate conversation.
Just think of it as a Palantir. They're using a Palantir to check out your work here, which is appropriate, a Palantir. But yeah, further to what Liz was saying, I think it is at present a loss leader. It's part of the overall customer experience of being with Amazon, being with Prime. It's going to become more and more indispensable to people. To me, and I'm a late adopter. To me, it's still kind of a toy. I go over to my friend Doreen's, and its main use is Alexa, play Dave Matthews Band. So, is this something that people are going to pay for? That and some other things. I mean, I recognize that it's being used for a lot more than that sort of thing. It's a convenience, but I think it will become more essential. As we were talking, I was thinking, well, how do we tie Alexa into everything else that Amazon is doing? And I think about sitting around in the evening with my wife, looking at all those recommendations on Prime for what to watch, and they all stink. They have no idea what I like or what my wife likes. You bring a little AI, and they've got some algorithm that is not functioning right. You bring better AI, and you'll have something that's, insinuated itself further into our lives. I liked the article, though, at the end, it pointed out that the ambition is really to be the Star Trek computer. It's voice activated, but it's tied into everything you're doing. So it's not just, your refrigerator or your garage door. Now it's, as Liz says, it's in your car. But it's also going to be in the office. It's going to be in smart buildings. It'll be doing job assistance along with environment maintenance. Spotting potential repairs and maintenance problems. I think that it's going to expand its usage, and at that point, I think it becomes so essential that yes, you can begin to charge a subscription for it, and that's, I think, the path to monetization. But I think it's still a few years hence.
That's interesting. And by the way, thank you for your Dave Matthews reference, and also the Echo Show 15, which I have mounted on the wall right here off camera. Started to go crazy with that. It pulled up this amazing interface with all of Dave Matthews' music, and it started playing Ants Marching. I had no idea it could actually even do that. So thank you.
Well, I hesitated. I'm afraid. I hope I didn't set off your device, Liz.
It's interesting when people will say that, so and so do this or that as just in the course of commentary on the show. It doesn't necessarily activate. I've got multiple devices in here. It normally doesn't do that, but something about you saying that, it really wanted to play Dave Matthews clearly. No, but great comments. And Elanu, I'm coming to you for the last word. So much of what you've done already has involved the Alexa ecosystem. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the piece, if anything in particular stood out, but the future of it and where you see that it's headed.
Yeah, before I start, I'd like to give you a little bit of context. So like at the Knowledge Society, we had the opportunity to build recommendations that we could present to companies like Alexa. They usually give us a problem statement or something that they want to explore further, and we look into it. And when I was working on the project I previously talked about, we were told to specifically focus on Gen Z. So what are their habits and how can we make them engage? And our goal was to make an Alexa product that Gen Z would use on a daily basis. So I like to talk about how we thought about monetizing Alexa, targeting my generation. I think for a voice assistant to succeed among the younger generation and preferably make money, it has to offer something that other technologies cannot, because in terms of ease, we are pretty good at managing like text and scrolling. Like shopping, for example, just like in the article, Alexa doesn't add value to the online shopping experience right now. In fact, customers lose visuality too. When coming up with a solution with my team, we realized that one area that Alexa could be really good at providing a unique experience to Gen Z was entertainment related things. In the end, we chose to go with music since it's really indispensable for a lot of us. And by integrating an Alexa with better conversational skills in terms of music, we use the platform as an experiment to illustrate how the interaction of an audio chatbot could enhance the streaming experience. But in addition to that, to actually monetize Alexa, we designed a way to use Alexa as a tool to connect to all other Amazon services. So just like Matt mentioned, sometimes recommendations on Prime's system, Prime's platform, or Amazon Music system, they're not really good. So we thought have Alexa here can really help us to explore more musics that we will enjoy. Maybe make some trivia quizzes like which music is this, who sings this song, or helps us to create craft playlists that our friends or our family would like to listen, and in that way we would be able to provide something that really differs from other companies in the landscape, in the streaming landscape, and also provide a use for Alexa to really communicate with my generation, because that's where we are. We are on streaming platforms just like anybody else. And if you can build that connection with us, then when we see Alexa on any other platform, we will be familiar and we will be able to understand how much value we can get from it and be more prone to try it out.
I love that. Yeah, and I love so much of the work that you and your team have been doing, and appreciate you sharing some of that here on the show as context for how you answered that question. So, Elanu, Matt, Liz, appreciate all three of y'all taking the time to be part of the show, sharing your expertise, not just with me but the audience as well. It's greatly appreciated. For This Week in Voice, Season 9, Episode 7. Thank you for watching. If you've been watching on YouTube, thank you for listening if you've been on your podcast provider of choice. Until next time.